Okay, so hello everybody, good afternoon and welcome to the EduphoreIAS, the live Hindu class. Today, we are going to discuss first with yesterday's questions. Don't have questions, but I hope you can recall the questions today's session, yesterday's discussion. So I hope we had already shared this in the respective groups, class groups. So kindly open those questions and I hope you have tried to solve the same. In the meantime, I'm opening the questions, and therefore first question that was meant for prelims was related to the Hulog Gibbon, right? And the statement was, the first statement was that Hulog Gibbon, especially the sanctuary that was mentioned in the news, and that is Hulog Gibbon sanctuary is located in the state of Manipur. That is incorrect. We discussed yesterday that this sanctuary is actually Holangpar Gibbon sanctuary is located in the state of Assam and not the Manipur. Therefore, statement 1 is wrong. Thereafter, the second statement जो है that is like other 19 gibbon species on earth, it is marked as endangered under IUCN red list. बिल्कुल ठीक है सेकंड स्टेटमेंट बिकॉज जो गिबन की हुलॉग गिबन की या अदर जो 19 स्पीसीज ऑफ गिबन्स हैं उनकी जो आप IUCN स्टेटस देखोगे अंडर रेड लिस्ट ऑफ endangered species or threatened species, so therefore the status is of endangered. Fine. So therefore statement 1 is wrong, second is correct. It means the only correct option here is only 2. Fine, the B option. Next question was for subjective part, and that is, as the focal point of difference between the government and the judiciary over its appointment procedure, the Election Commission of India is in danger of being weakened. Comment. And the question was for 15 marks, and you need to write the same in words. So here, so first is, we discussed this article yesterday, and this article was on editorial, the lead article of yesterday's editorial of Hindu. Right? The title was "The Election Commission Autonomy in the Crosshairs." Here we discussed everything, that what is the status, what is the thing. So the current status is that government of India has introduced a bill in the Rajya Sabha in the recent concluded monsoon session of the parliament, whereby the government actually wanted to form a committee for appointing the CEC, Chief Election Commissioner, and the election commissioners. Fine. But the background of this is why the government actually felt this need to introduce such kind of bill. तो आज के टाइम अभी तक एट प्रेजेंट जो अपॉइंटमेंट प्रोसीजर सीसी एंड ईसी की है, जो कल भी हमने बात की थी, दैट इज बेस्ड ऑन द रिकमेंडेशंस ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट टू द प्रेसिडेंट, एंड फाइनल अथॉरिटी फॉर अपॉइंटमेंट इज द प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ इंडिया. बट उसमें क्या है कि कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के अंडर ये मेंशन्ड है कि द अथॉरिटी और द पावर related to coming up with any committee or any regulation or having an institute or law rests with the parliament. कि पार्लियामेंट जब चाहे एक कानून बना के एंड अपॉइंटमेंट के प्रोविजंस में चेंजेस ला सकती है. बट इंडियन गवर्नमेंट्स ने, आई मीन किसी की भी सरकार रही हो पिछले 75 ईयर्स 73 ईयर्स, सो उसमें किसी ने भी ऐसा कुछ नहीं किया. तो हुआ क्या कि एक PIL फाइल की गई सुप्रीम कोर्ट में, जो हमने कल डिस्कस किया था, एंड अल्टीमेटली इन द हियरिंग ऑफ और द जजमेंट which was delivered by a constitution bench of the Supreme Court on March 2nd, 2023. So Supreme Court ने ये कहा कि the government should form a committee which comprises of Prime Minister, the chairperson of the committee. Second person would be the leader of opposition in the Lok Sabha or the single largest party leader in the Lok Sabha. And third person of the committee would be none but CJI itself. This CJI of course CJI of India or CJI. ठीक है, Chief Justice of India. Okay, so these are the 3 members which will be the part of this committee, but this committee will be chaired by Prime Minister. But हुआ क्या कि ये जो बिल सरकार ने इंट्रोड्यूस किया, जो कि हमने कल डिस्कस भी किया था राज्यसभा में, उसमें CJI को रिप्लेस करके मेंशन कर दी गई कि यूनियन कैबिनेट मिनिस्टर टू बी नॉमिनेटेड बाय प्राइम मिनिस्टर. तो हुआ क्या कि यहाँ से जुडिशरी का जो रोल था, जो इन्वॉल्वमेंट थी अपॉइंटमेंट में ऑफ CCs, जैसे जुडिशरी की जो रोल है या इन्वॉल्वमेंट है, CJI को ही बाहर कर दिया गया, एंड उनकी जगह पे एक यूनियन कैबिनेट मिनिस्टर होगा जिसको कि नॉमिनेट कौन करेगा, प्राइम मिनिस्टर. सो दैट्स द मेजर इशू. ठीक है, सो दिस इज द क्रॉस हियर्स और यू कैन से द बोन ऑफ कंटेंशन विद द appointments of CEC and ECs between government and the judiciary. ठीक है, तो ये बातें हैं, तो ये आप इंट्रोडक्शन में मेंशन करोगे, ठीक है, एंड 15 मार्क का क्वेश्चन है तो ऑफ कोर्स इंट्रोडक्शन आपकी 4 से 5 लाइन होनी चाहिए, नॉट मोर देन दैट. अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट, नाउ following the same this structure of answering, that is IBC जो हम follow करते हैं, intro, body and conclusion. So intro is done. Body should be, you know, like you can mention the issues, you know, so an issue that has seen much debate. So now you will start writing since the times of 1949 constitution debate कि वहाँ पे debates में क्या हुई, वहाँ पे primacy किसको दी गई, और वहाँ पे mention किया गया कि हाँ जो ultimate authority है that rests with the ultimate power rests with the parliament framing such laws related to their appointments. तो उसके बाद आप committees mention करोगे जो हमने कल discuss किया था in detail. For example, तारकुंडे कमिटी, उसके बाद दिनेश गोस्वामी कमिटी. Then we also discuss some recommendations of the Administrative Reforms Commission, second Administrative Reform Commission of 2009. उसके बाद फिर हमने देखा था कि फॉर्मर जो CEC थे उन्होंने 2006 में बेबी टंडन जी उन्होंने द देन प्रेसिडेंट डॉक्टर कलाम को ये सजेस्ट किया था कि एक 7 मेंबर कमिटी फॉर्म की जाए रिलेटेड टू द अपॉइंटमेंट्स ऑफ ECs एंड CEC. ठीक है, तो ऑल सच थिंग्स शुड बी मेंशन्ड. ठीक है, एंड ये भी हमने देखा था कि अभी जो प्रेजेंट गवर्नमेंट है उस टाइम पे गवर्नमेंट ने ये अपोजिशन में थी एंड काफ़ी ये भी कहा था एज अपोजिशन में पार्टी की हाँ इसमें CGI की जो है वो भागीदारी जो है यहाँ जो पार्टिसिपेशन है अपॉइंटमेंट में होनी चाहिए. मीन CGI शुड बी द पार्ट, मस्ट बी द पार्ट ऑफ द कमिटी विच इज गोइंग टू अपॉइंट एंड CEC. बट नाउ the same party which is in power today is somewhat doesn't want the CGI to be on the panel for the part of this committee. So you can see this divergences. And then apart from that, there are certain suggestions for reforms in the appointment procedure of the ECI जो आप दे सकते हो. And apart from that, in final conclusion or way forward remarks, you can mention the ECI has been held to be a reliable, responsible and trustworthy institution by the people of India. Let's discuss last paragraph. Therefore, the point remains that the present regime still sees the ECI, or you can say, and this autonomy of the this Election Commission of India, considering its reliability, responsibility, trustworthiness among the citizens, should be maintained or should remain intact. That is possible only when we are having some committee like this, where or a collegium kind of system related to the appointment and the right. So this is how you should you can conclude your answer. That's completed your answer now following the structure of IBC. That's it. Let us start quickly today's news itself. So आज के हिंदू हम देखते हैं August 31st is the date. Quickly let us have a look at the front page itself. क्या important है आज के front page से. Okay. So front page तीनों ही इश्यूज हम कल डिस्कस कर चुके हैं. कल ही हमने देखा था कि CWA में दैट इज कावेरी वाटर मैनेजमेंट अथॉरिटी जो है इसने कर्नाटका की जो गवर्नमेंट है उसको ये कहा था कि क्या बोला था कि आप वाटर जो है वो रिलीज करो तमिलनाडु को. ठीक है, सो नाउ द कर्नाटका हैज स्टार्टेड रिलीजिंग द सेम. उसके बाद कल हमने एक और डिस्कस किया था ये कि आधार बेस्ड पेमेंट प्लान फॉर मनरेगा जो है उसमें अलाउ ऑलमोस्ट 41.1% जो मनरेगा वर्कर्स हैं ऐसे हैं जिनकी कि अभी ABPS दैट इज आधार बेस्ड पेमेंट सिस्टम जिसके अभी फोल्ड में नहीं आ पाए हैं या जिनकी पेमेंट नहीं हो सकती आधार बेस्ड थ्रू दिस लिंकिंग ऑफ अकाउंट. ठीक है, DBT दैट इज डायरेक्ट बेनिफिट ट्रांसफर इन देयर रिस्पेक्टिव अकाउंट्स, बैंक अकाउंट्स. तो उसमें अभी इश्यूज हैं. So therefore government ने further, this is the 5th extension actually given by the government. Deadline जो है for seeding the Aadhaar with this bank account and all. So इसके लिए deadline जो है बढ़ा के till the year end तक कर दिया है, means 31st December. ठीक है, so that's the good thing. China doubles down on new map. कल हमने डिस्कस किया था कि चाइना ने न्यू मैप रिलीज की है एंड उसमें उसने अपनी टेरिटरी शो की है. बॉर्डर जो है उसके अंडर शो कर दिया है अरुणाचल प्रदेश को जिसको कि वो साउथ तिब्बत मानता है. देन अक्साई चीन को जिसको पाकिस्तान ने उसको गिफ्ट किया था पार्ट ऑफ समवॉट POK एंड एंटायर साउथ चाइना सी को. साउथ चाइना सी से चलो हमें डायरेक्ट को नहीं लेना देना बट समवॉट हमारा इंटरेस्ट दो लाई करता है साउथ चाइना सी में भी. but Arunachal Pradesh and of course the side chain is are these two territories are the integral part of let us say India. तो इसलिए एंड साथ में ये भी कहा है चाइना के स्पोक्स पर्सन ने फॉरेन मिनिस्ट्री के the other side should calm, ठीक है. So you can see the kind of language. Somewhat हो सकता है कि चाइनीज प्रेसिडेंट इंडिया ना आना चाहते हो G20 एजेंडा हो सकता है ये. Whatever it is, we'll be keeping tab on this. So that कि शोर पहले ही इतना क्रिएट कर दो कि बस आने लायक ही ना बचे. Okay. चलो, so let us have quickly look. ये दिल्ली से रिलेटेड सिटी पेज है जो कि खास रेलिवेंट नहीं है हमारे लिए, स्पेशली जो दिल्ली से ज्वाइन कर रहे हैं. ऑफ कोर्स शुड हैव अ लुक एट इट. अवेयरनेस जरूरी है जहाँ भी आप रहते हो आसपास. अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट दिस इज स्पोर्ट्स पेज. स्पोर्ट्स पेज पे जनरली आपको पॉलिटिक्स देखने को मिलती है. सो अगेन हम इसको स्किप कर सकते हैं अनलेस एंड अनटिल की कुछ खास इंपॉर्टेंट ना मिले इस पेज. हाँ, तो इसमें इंपॉर्टेंट क्या है देखो, दिस इज इम्पॉर्टेंट. कहोगे सांप कब से इंपॉर्टेंट हो गया, तो है यूपीएससी के लिए ये चीज़ें काफ़ी इंपॉर्टेंट है, स्पेशली द स्पीसीज. ठीक है, तो हुआ क्या है कि इस वाइल्ड लाइफ कंजर्वेशन सोसाइटी जो है इंडिया की, इसने रिपोर्ट की है. इट हैज़ फ्लैग्ड इलीगल ट्रेड ऑफ रेंट्स एंड बोआ. इट इज़ अ काइंड ऑफ रेप्टाइल, स्पेशली स्नेक, यू कैन से वन ऑफ द स्नेक स्पीसीज. ठीक है, तो ये इसकी स्टडी है, एक रिपोर्ट पब्लिश की है बिटवीन द ईयर्स 2016 एंड 2021. एंड इसमें मेंशन किया है कि अमंग द 172 इंसिडेंट्स ऑफ सीजर्स ऑफ रेंट्स एंड बोआ, दिस एक्चुअली समवॉट एस्टैब्लिश द फैक्ट दैट देयर illegal trade in taking place in India. Especially the highest number of this illegal trade in rats and boa has been recorded in Maharashtra, followed by the Uttar Pradesh. Okay, and हमारे लिए important ये है, the most important aspect of this whole thing is this one कि IUCN की रेड लिस्ट में जो है, रेड लिस्ट ऑफ स्पीसीज, उसमें स्टेटस क्या है इस रेड्स एंड बोआ की, तो वो है नियर थ्रेटेंड. दैट्स इट. इतना आप लोगों ने. ठीक है, उसके बाद नेक्स्ट अगेन स्टेट्स पेज. यहाँ से भी कुछ खास इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है. अगेन यू हैव दिस. अभी क्या है आपकी, क्या है फॉर स्टेट्स पॉलिटिक्स ओनली, बट यहाँ पे एक है IMSC, that is Institute of Mathematical Sciences, will pay homage to its visionary founder director Aladi Ramakrishnan for centenary year. ठीक है, सो बस इतना याद रख सकते हो, बेस्ट है. ठीक है, he was an eminent physicist. गुड न्यूज़. हाँ, जो आर्टिकल इंपॉर्टेंट है आज के लिए, दैट इज अगेन द लीड आर्टिकल ऑन द पेज इन दिस एडिटोरियल पेज. एंड ये आर्टिकल इंपॉर्टेंट इस सेंस में हो जाता है क्योंकि दिस आर्टिकल, दो हमने पहले भी काफ़ी सारे आर्टिकल्स स्पेशली आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस रिलेटेड डिस्कस किए हैं, बट ये आर्टिकल थोड़ा डिफरेंट इन द सेंस कि दिस आर्टिकल इज एम्फेसाइजिंग ऑन having a regulation, and that regulation should be based on the Indian ethos. ठीक है, and it should be, the regulation should be by the Indians for the Indians. Indians ही बनाए Indians के लिए. ठीक है, it should be grounded in the Indian ethos, or you can say somewhat Indian morality, ancient values and all. ठीक है, तो यहाँ पे राइटर जो है वो कहीं ना कहीं डिफरेंशिएट कर रहे हैं बिटवीन टू टाइप्स ऑफ वेस्टर्न सिस्टम रेगुलेशंस एंड ईस्टर्न सिस्टम. तो वेस्टर्न सिस्टम में ऑफ कोर्स आप समझ सकते हो कि वेस्टर्न नेशंस की बात की गई है, कंट्रीज की लेड बाय ईयू स्पेशली, क्योंकि ईयू इन चीज़ों के इन मामलों में स्पेशली अगर पर्सनल इस डेटा को भी, पर्सनल डेटा प्रोटेक्शन बिल की भी बात करें, उसको भी रेगुलेट करने की बात आई हो, तो ईयू थोड़ा नॉट थोड़ा बट ईयू जो है काफ़ी प्रोएक्टिव है, इवन मोर प्रोएक्टिव देन यूएस. ठीक है, स्पेशली रिस्पेक्ट टू रेगुलेटिंग द डिजिटल फील्ड और डिजिटल यू कैन से प्लेटफॉर्म्स. तो इसलिए ईयू लीड कर रहा है इस सेगमेंट में, दैट इज टू बी कॉल्ड एज, इन्होंने इसको बोला है वेस्टर्न सिस्टम, वेस्टर्न नेशंस. एंड देन द अदर सिस्टम इज द ईस्टर्न सिस्टम. Eastern system is led by the Japan and China, and of course the focus on this article somewhat by the end of the conclusion, the last paragraph, is that India too should come up with its own set of regulations of AI, artificial intelligence. Okay, so this article is all about this. Fine. Then what could be the what are the some commonalities, some differences between West and East regulations related to the AI, and how India can to what extent India can take lessons from, or you can take some cue from these two types of regulations. Now we need to have a look at. Okay. So the need for an Indian system to regulate AI. अब टाइटल से ही समझ गए होगी कि राइटर क्या बात करना चाहते हैं हम. So consider these facts. Artificial intelligence AI is here to stay, of course. AI possesses the capability to fundamentally change the way in which we work. AI can, by assimilation of data from multifarious online sources, present far more powerful solutions than any human can, and AI is far greater force of either good or evil. So given all these things or all these questions, AI needs to be regulated. Okay? It's something which is going to stay, should be regulated, isn't it? Because it is going to have its impact at the macro level, wider level. Every person, especially operating in the digital domain, would be impacted. Fine. So therefore, the need of hour is to have own set of regulations that is rooted in Indian ethnicity. So East is West and West is West. Okay. So government across the world are grappling with the regulations of AI. Till recently, the greatest advances in the regulation of AI have been made in the European Union, Brazil, Canada, Japan, and now China. So countries in the EU, Brazil, and the United Kingdom, which shall be referred hereafter as Western system. So in countries को Western system, and of course China and Japan को Eastern system बोला है. Regulations in Japan and China, however, are fundamentally different from the Western system. Now, the Western system जो है, they have all adopted means of regulations which are intrinsically Western in character. What does it mean? It means they are founded in the Eurocentric view of jurisprudence. The Eastern model is entirely different. So how the Eastern and Western system of regulation of AI are different? Now this is a point that we need to understand. So Western model जो है, it focuses on, the first point of difference between Eastern and Western model is that Western model somewhat focuses on okay, so Western model focuses on risk-based or risk-centered. Okay, so you can see Western model focuses on a risk-based approach. Risk-based approach है जो Western model की है. Why? First, lawmakers create a pyramid of risk and identify the risk posed by every type of AI-based publication. The pyramid of risk then proceeds to be divided into 4 categories. First is unacceptable risk, second is high risk, third is limited risk, and fourth is low risk. So ये pyramid में divide किए हैं under 4 categories: unacceptable risk, high risk, fine, and limited risk and low risk under Western system, or the, you can say, this risk-based approach of the Western system. In the EU, European Union, therefore, the lawmakers have gone about prescribing prohibited classes of activities for the unacceptable risk. कि जो risk unacceptable है उसके लिए जो activities of the citizens हैं या वो prohibited होनी चाहिए, ठीक है. Second risk is regulated class of activities for the high risk, regulated होनी चाहिए, and a simple set of disclosure based obligations for the low risk, ठीक है. So all this is related to your Western model. Now, as far as the Eastern model are concerned, the Japanese government's Integrated Innovation Strategy Promotion Council has framed a set of rules called the Social Principles of Human-Centric AI. Okay? So, you see the title. It was published, of course, in the year 2019 and manifests the basic principles of an AI-capable society. The focus here is more on the society. The first part contains 7 social principles that a society and the state must respect when dealing with AI, artificial intelligence. So what are these 7 heads? Human centricity, education, literacy, data protection, ensuring all, you see, related to the directly citizens of the society, you can say at large. Human centricity, education, literacy, data protection, fine. Safety, fair competition, fairness, accountability, transparency, and innovation. All this has been mentioned under Japanese regulation of AI. The Chinese regulations are even more interesting. The opening lines of Article 4 of these regulations states the provision and use of generative artificial intelligence. Generative, like where you can generate the text, essays and all, you can generate something, some output, fine, like ChatGPT, by providing some inputs, shall abide by laws and administrative regulations, respect social morality and ethics, and abide by the following provisions. So see all these beautiful words being mentioned under the Chinese regulations. Okay? Ethics, morality, I think doesn't augur well with China, isn't it? Okay. So the law goes on to prescribe the kind of values that should be upheld and promoted by artificial intelligence services, and the ends that should be achieved through these AI-based applications and services. So first point is, somewhat you see the approach of Western nations are, the Western system approach is called risk-based approach. The focus is on risk categorization, while the Eastern focus is more on the morality and the society-based approach. Okay? Another difference is somewhat you see Western nations or Western system has focus on the means to achieve these ends, securing these risk factors, but the Eastern nations focus is on what the main these ends means ultimate the achievements. ठीक है कि means ऐसे follow करें कि achievement जो है जो ends है वो legal हो, social हो and moral हो, ethical हो, but Western nations का reverse है, उनका जो focus है that is on means, but Western nations की जो focus है Eastern nation की जो focus है that is on ends. means हम कोई भी follow करें, ends जो है वो social, moral and ethical होनी चाहिए. ठीक है, that should be rooted in the society. So the difference is stark. While there are areas of overlap, it is readily evident that one set of rules, the Western model, spells out what must be done and how to do it. The weight of the rules rests on the means to be adopted and the rationale underlying those means. ठीक है, so means पे ज़्यादा focus है. The other set of rules, that is Western model, focuses on the ends and the values that must be upheld by compliance with the rules. So these are the second point of difference. Then the Western model is perfect for the West. A clear set of rules which a rule-abiding society will undoubtedly comply with, along with set of prescriptions and punishment. ठीक है, क्यों कह रहे हैं कि वहाँ के लोग रूल को comply करते हैं, abide करते हैं, इसलिए rule-abiding society है. So therefore this model is best for the West. The Eastern model is more open and embraces the overlap between the legality of the rules and the morality of the rules. ठीक है, so legal system which possess this overlap have been given the name Hindu jurisprudence. Jurisprudence is basically the theory of law actually. So Hindu jurisprudence by legal philosopher Harup Northman. So he actually talked about this Hindu, not Northman, but Harup Freeman actually. Okay? So Harup Freeman is a legal philosopher who termed this open and overlapping between the legality of the rules and morality of the rules as Hindu jurisprudence. Okay? That's the difference between Western jurisprudence and Hindu or Eastern jurisprudence. So why is there this difference between the West and the East? ये question है. हुआ क्या? In 1930s, Professor Northrop, okay, यहाँ पे Northrop है, यहाँ पे है, of the Yale School undertook a very interesting study of legal system in the East and the West. While he was not particularly focused on the Indian legal system, his conclusion as outlined below are very apt to use to us as well. तो एक legal study की इन्होंने, याले legal school के professor थे Northrop, and इन्होंने दो इनकी focus जो study की थी that was not based on the Indian legal system, yet the conclusion of his studies are somewhat apt or appropriate for us. So underlying theories क्या हैं? After examining the cultural relativism, this is the important term, cultural relativism, that how the Eastern and the Western world are relative in terms of culture, how culturally they are related or different. Okay? So between the Western and the Eastern, Professor Northrop concluded that Eurocentric legal system or the Western legal system created rules of law through postulation. That is, the legal system defines precisely what must be done in any given social order by humans and prescribes the penalties for non-compliance of same. On the other hand, Eastern or Oriental legal system, Oriental, the people of course East, Orientalists. So Eastern or Oriental legal system created rules of law through intuition. That is to say, the law prescribes the end that is to be achieved and the morality underlying that law. So the subjects intuitively divine for themselves the most appropriate means of achieving ends. Focus is on divinity, morality, and the ends to be achieved. Okay? Unlike means focus of the Western system, and underlying, of course, the morality of the law. So these are the differences. Article, in different perspective. That's this because we've discussed lots of articles related to AI, but this is somewhat different. In India, let us now go back to the ancient legal system of India. Was so profoundly successful because there was a clear indication of the end to be achieved. पहले से पता होता था, जैसे हम लोग गोल बनाते हैं, गोल सेटिंग्स करते हैं, प्लानिंग करते हैं कि हाँ ये बनना है या ये करना है, अचीव करना है, तो पहले से हमें एंड पता होती है. ठीक है, नाउ विल बी यूजिंग द मींस टू अचीव दैट एंड. तो इंडियन लीगल सिस्टम जो है, एंशिएंट लीगल सिस्टम वर प्रोफाउंडली सक्सेसफुल बिकॉज दे वर or there was a clear indication of the end to be achieved as well as an underlying moral code. People complied with those laws by the process of intuition underlaid by morality. ठीक है, ये नहीं कि डंडा लेके उनको ये कहा जाता है कि अबाइड करो लॉ को, बट लोग जो थे वो मोरल थे, एंड इंट्यूटिवली उसको फॉलो करते थे, इंट्यूशन के साथ फॉलो करते थे, ना कि जबरदस्ती करवाना पड़ता था. So we see repeated echoes of these in Pandavas exiled to the forest, जो पांडवास अज्ञातवास जंगल में गए, and in Emperor Ashoka's edicts, major and minor edicts, stock edicts. This served as us well. Neighbor China has a story where Emperor Wudi in 140 BC punished his errant sister by proclaiming, "The laws are created by my former royal fathers. If I break their laws because of my sister, how can I face them in the royal temple after I die?" काश चाइना की करंट एस्टेब्लिशमेंट इसके बारे में सोचती. लॉ एंड मोरालिटी आर सिनोनिम्स इन द ईस्ट. ठीक है, तो लॉ एंड मोरालिटी जो ईस्टर्न सिस्टम में है, दे आर नॉट डिफरेंट बट दे आर सिनोनिम्स. ठीक है, अनलाइक वेस्ट. The British who came to India transplanted their own legal system here. So what we have today possesses neither the virtues of our ancient Indian system nor the virtues of the English legal system. बिल्कुल ठीक बात है. वैसे भी एक जोक भी है कि आज हम कहते हैं वी आर वेस्टर्नाइज्ड, सो वी आर नाइदर इंडियंस और इंडियनाइज्ड, नाइदर वेस्टर्नाइज्ड, वी आर इन बिटवीन. ठीक है, तो कहीं के भी नहीं हम. क्यू फ्रॉम द जुडिशरी. क्यू फ्रॉम द जुडिशरी. सो जुडिशरी की इंटरप्रिटेशन क्या है? जस्टिस वी रामा सुब्रमण्यम, जो अभी अभी रिटायर्ड हुए हैं सुप्रीम कोर्ट से, has lamented in more than one judgment that our slavish tendency is to ape Western legal system. हमारी slave mentality और slavish tendency जो है वो है ape the Western system, कि कॉपी करें उसकी. One of his most celebrated judgment on cryptocurrency in India has its core the Sanskrit epigram that is neti neti, which means it is neither this nor that. One would expect regulators to take the cue from our judges and frame our newest regulations based on our Eastern models of jurisprudence. So, learning from the Eastern model and not the Western model. The system based on AI must be regulated. It is for India to frame its regulations. Fine. So, do we slavishly copy the West and frame lengthy regulations? Or do we hark back to our roots and approach these regulations from a different perspective? Question is for us. But Niti Aayog has circulated 3 discussion papers which touch upon AI. In each of these, there are references only to the AI regulations in the EU, the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, and Australia. It has gone on to state the responsible AI principles discussed earlier in this paper have been developed by the first, identifying systematic consideration prevalent among AI systems across the world, but not across the world, but largely across the Western nation. Fine. So this is what is saying कि जो नीति आयोग का पेपर है वो भी कहीं ना कहीं वेस्टर्न नेशंस की कॉपी करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, यहाँ उनके सिस्टम को फॉलो करने की बात कर रहे हैं, बट A reading of the discussion paper suggests that the Niti Aayog is going to follow the Western model. However, the time has come for India to have a regulations in a manner that is consistent with the Indian ethos by and for Indians. Let us hope that AI regulation is done better than indications suggest and India must look east. ठीक है कि हमें अपने हिस्टोरिकल जो हमारी प्रेसिडेंट्स रही हैं, जो भी हमारी रूट्स हैं, इथोस हैं, मोरालिटी हैं, एंशिएंट लीगल सिस्टम जो इंडिया का रहा है, उससे हमें सीखने की जरूरत है, ना कि हमें एक कॉपी करने की जरूरत है. फाइन. So an outstanding article, I would say, masterpiece with respect to the AI regulations, especially talking about the morality, society, ethics, fine, even ancient legal system. So everything, comprehensive one. You must read, revise, and use this as a fodder in your GS3 technology tech part whenever you need to write something about the AI regulations. But how Indian system of regulations or Eastern system of regulations can be better than copying the Western system. Fine. Next, जो article है, that is controlling women's sexual autonomy. Fine. So this is again article is I think the last week also discussed about the consent. Fine. वहाँ पे एक debate चल रही थी consent, जो age of consent है उसको use करने की जरूरत है from 18 to 16 or even to 14. But वहाँ पे भी हमने देखा कि there were point of the arguments were diverging direction, not the convergent ones, कि अगर आप कम कर भी देते हो फिर भी कुछ खास फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा उससे. But somehow today's article is different in the sense that it talks about one of the this clause, and that is clause 69 of the recently this introduced bill. You can say not yet introduced, but rather of course introduced, but sent to the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Home Affairs for further course of action or recommendations. And that is Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita 2023. In short, this is going to replace your IPC, Indian Penal Code 1860. Fine. So 69 clause जो है इस बिल का एक्चुअली 2023 में जो इंट्रोड्यूस की गई थी पार्लियामेंट में, it actually proposes to criminalize sex which is based on the promise to marry when there was no intention of fulfilling them. तो बहुत बार हमें ये सुनने को मिलता है कि on the pretext of or the promise of marrying, some incident has took place certain like this, where actually this final the case actually is related to, let us say, rape and all. Fine. कि प्रॉमिस की गई थी कि हाँ मैरिज करेंगे, इसलिए फिजिकल रिलेशंस एस्टैब्लिश हुई, एंड बिकॉज ऑफ दैट लेटर ऑन क्या हुआ कि कहीं ना कहीं बैकआउट कर गई. फाइन. मोस्ट ऑफ द केसेस में यही होता है कि मेल पार्टनर जो है वो बैकआउट कर गया या कुछ ऐसा सा हो गया. बट समवॉट द राइटर इज बड़ा ही बैलेंस मैनर में इन्होंने लिखा है और ये कह रही हैं कि कहीं ना कहीं इसको मिसयूज भी बहुत किया जाता है. ठीक है, कि कई बार ये जानते बूझते हुए भी कि कुछ पॉसिबिलिटीज नहीं है. फॉर एग्जांपल यहाँ पे इंस्टेंसेस देती हैं इंटरकास्ट मैरिजेस की, कि फीमेल्स को पहले से ये चीज पता होती है कि उनके पेरेंट्स अलाउ नहीं करेंगे, बट स्टिल दे एस्टैब्लिश दिस काइंड ऑफ रिलेशंस, दे आर हैविंग द फिजिकल रिलेशंस, एंड देन even after knowing this much that intercaste marriages won't be possible or not allowed by their parents, they go for such kind of things. Fine. So again, so a kind of balanced, and even on such kind of on similar lines, even she quotes the two judgments of the Supreme Court. Okay, and of course related to related to the states, of course Bihar, and the second is related to Karnataka. So we'll be even focusing on these two cases. And these two cases are important whenever you need to write something related to matters. Fine. So इसलिए case laws हमारे लिए बहुत important. So let us have a quick look at this. So the whole issue she is discussing is this clause 69 of the new this bill, that is Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita in Hindi, which is going to replace your Indian Penal Code 1860. Fine. The three bills which has been introduced by Indian Evidence Act को भी replace करने के लिए, then criminal procedure code को भी, इसलिए different bills in with Hindi names government ने introduce किए. So while the clause also covers deceit, धोखाधड़ी से, based on sex beyond the promise to marry, the focus here is on cases where there is a promise to marry. ठीक है, कि क्लॉज ये भी कवर कर रहा है जो डिसीट के बेसिस पे, कि धोखाधड़ी से भी इस तरह की अगर आप फिजिकल रिलेशन एस्टैब्लिश करते हो, दिस हैज बीन कवर्ड अंडर दिस क्लॉज, बट समहाउ द फोकस हियर इज ऑन केसेस वेयर देयर इज अ प्रॉमिस टू मैरी. ठीक है, कि प्रॉमिस मैरिज की करके रिलेशंस एस्टैब्लिश की जाती है एंड फिर बाद में मैरिज नहीं करते, एंड दैट केस एक्चुअली बिकम्स द केस. ठीक है, दिस इज हाउ So fundamental question emerged from the proposed clause 69 of this Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita 2023 is that should criminal law have a role to play in sexual relationship that involve a false promise to marry? ये criminal law जो है should it play a role in sexual relationships or physical relationships that involve a false promise to marry? The first question. So what does it mean for how we understand the sexual autonomy of women? तो ये women के लिए क्या मीनिंग रखता है? If we talk about this particular clause, it might seem like a women-centric proposal, but clause 69 is steeped in misogynistic notions about women's sexuality. It casts women as perpetual victims who can be duped into having sex and effectively denies them sexual autonomy. ठीक है, तो ये कहते हैं कि कहीं ना कहीं ये जो क्लॉज है ये मान के एज्यूम करके चलती है कि ऑलवेज द फीमेल्स आर द विक्टिम. ठीक है, okay, so the understanding is that the criminal law has to come to the rescue of a woman, since only way for her to maintain or reclaim her position in a society as a good woman is by filing criminal charges against the man unless he agrees to marry her. Somewhat society की भी pressure है to be a good woman and all. So invisible consent. Criminalizing such act based on promise to marry is not a new proposition. The judiciary has for long interpreted such cases as rape under section 375 of the IPC. Since a woman's consent to sex is based on a man's delivering a future promise to marry her, the breaking of such promises culminates in a rape trial. I said, ultimately we see that such kind of acts resulting in the rape trials. Ultimately the males are left, or you can say somewhat faces such rape cases, despite consent being exclusively defined under section 375 of the IPC. Through the 2013 amendments to date, courts rely on the definition of consent under section 19 of the IPC. कह रही है कि दो IPC जो है ऑलरेडी इंडियन पिनल कोड, उसमें 375 जो सेक्शन है, ठीक है, उसमें क्लियर कट डेफिनेशन दी हुई है कंसेंट की कि व्हाट एग्जैक्टली कंसेंट मींस, बट समवॉट अभी तक जो कोर्ट रिलाई कर रही है 2013 के अमेंडमेंट पे, एंड स्पेशली सेक्शन 90 में जो मेंशन है कंसेंट उस पे, ठीक है, उस डेफिनेशन. So in these cases, so misconception is seen to exist when the promise is made only to coax a woman into sex without any intention of marrying her. So this is called misconception. Okay. The empty nature of the promise retrospectively vitiates the consent, leading the man to be guilty of rape. ठीक है, कि retrospectively back date में जाके कहीं ना कहीं man को जो है वो guilty declare कर दिया जाता है. But section 90 also requires, she is saying कि section 90 जिसके अंदर ये अभी तक cases generally trials rape trials ये होती है, ठीक है, so it also requires the man to know that consent is being given under misconception of marriage. Significantly, however, by proposing an offense separate from rape, clause 69 throws out the element of knowledge on the part of men as well as. ठीक है, कि कहीं ना कहीं section clause 69 जो है it is throwing out by proposing an offense separate from rape. कि rape तो है ही, but अगर आपने प्रॉमिस ऑफ मैरिज करके अगर इस तरह के रिलेशन एस्टैब्लिश किए नहीं किए तो दिस वुड बी काउंटेड और टेंडर्ड एज सेपरेट ऑफेंस अपार्ट फ्रॉम व्हाट ऑलरेडी एग्जिस्ट, दैट इज रेप ट्रायल्स और रेप ऑफेंस. So clause 69 somehow throws out the element of knowledge on the part of both men and women, especially to their consent. ठीक है, both consent. So irrespective of whether consent of a woman to sex is actually based on a promise to marry, if such a promise is established to exist and be false, consensual sex can be punished. ठीक है, so she is saying कि somewhat consent of women to have such kind of relation is actually based on a promise to marry. Okay, but if such a promise is established to exist, कि हाँ ऐसी promise कोई establish exist करती थी and be false, okay, अगर false proof हो जाती है then such kind of consensual relations can be punished. ठीक है, and ultimately who would be punished? Of course the men, man itself. So it is not difficult to foresee a possibility of misuse of clause 69 by parents of women when they discover through her pregnancy or otherwise that their daughter had premarital sex. So at the stage of filing the complaint, it may not matter whether any promise to marry was made at all. So generally यही होता है कि चाहे promise हुई हो ना हुई हो, किस बेस पे relation establish किया गया नहीं किया गया, but ultimately अगर parents को पता लगता है कि such cases हुए हैं, तो of course they file the what FIR, ठीक है, and on the basis of or filing the complaint, so it may not matter whether any promise to marry was made at all. उनको नहीं लेना देना इससे, फिर गलत हुआ उनके no daughter के साथ, तो of course they have this right to file the complaint. Of course men can eventually be acquitted if women deny the existence of a promise to marry. अगर women ही कह दे कि हाँ इस तरह की promise नहीं exist करती है, कि पहले promise नहीं की गई थी related to marry, so of course the man can be acquitted. But this does not preclude arrest and detention in prison for a significant period. तो यहाँ पे इन्होंने इस चीज को misuse बताया है, क्योंकि अगर बाद में women इसको कह भी देती है कि हाँ promise ऐसा कुछ नहीं था, फिर भी a man has to spend some time, or some days in the lockup, or he would be arrested and detained, fine, in prison for a significant period. This is how law has been misused. And she is saying that this is not an exaggeration. बढ़ा चढ़ा के नहीं बोल रहे हैं, कुछ लिख रहे हैं. Especially when most rape trials are initiated by parents, guardians of women to restrict their sexual autonomy. Nearly 55% of the rape trials we observed in Lucknow in 2015 for a study fail in this category only. ठीक है, जहाँ पे पेरेंट्स रजिस्टर करते हैं कंप्लेंट, स्पेशली द प्रॉमिस ऑफ मैरी और प्रीटेक्स्ट ऑफ मैरी रिलेटेड केस. फर्दर, empirical research in other parts of India as well confirms the existence of such trends. ठीक है, rape charges are filed by parents and guardians of women against men who elope with the women, जो भाग जाते हैं. Irrespective of their actual age, women are reported as minors. ठीक है, in order to have a strong case against men, the parents used to show that the daughter was minor. Okay, this sets statutory rape charges into motion against their male partners. As a result, many men spend time in prison only for courts to acquit them after finding the women to be adults. So in such cases, rape charges arise not as an outcome of lack of consent, but because of consent. See difference. Such kind of rape charges are arising not as an outcome of consent, but not as an outcome of lack of consent, but or in the absence of consent, but rather presence of. Cases where there has been a promise to marry follow a similar logic. Consensual sex is post facto framed as a criminal offense if men fail to deliver on their promise of marriage. कि अगर मान भी लें कि हाँ प्रॉमिस थी रिलेटेड टू मैरिज, फाइन, फिर भी उसमें क्या होता है कि अल्टीमेटली पोस्ट फैक्टो मींस आफ्टर दैट later on the man is framed as a under the charges of criminal offense if he fails to deliver on promise. चलो इस केस में होना चाहिए, बट अदर केस जो इन्होंने मिसयूज वाली बात की, दैट इज इक्वली वैलिड. जुडिशियल इंटरप्रिटेशंस, तो जुडिशरी की कुछ इंटरप्रिटेशंस है, स्पेशली सुप्रीम कोर्ट के इन टू केसेस मेंशन्ड हियर स्पेशली, एंड सुप्रीम कोर्ट एंड हाई कोर्ट ऑफ कोर्स. तो यहाँ पे क्या बात की गई है इन केसेस में, हैव अ लुक एट इट. So there is one case, for instance, according to the Supreme Court, a man cannot be convicted for rape if the promise to marry has been broken because his parents were opposed to the wedlock. तो अगर पेरेंट्स ही अगर मेन जो मैन है उसके, ठीक है, अगेंस्ट हुई शादी के, तो इसको रेप चार्जेस के अगेंस्ट अंडर कन्विक्ट नहीं किया जा सकता. ठीक है, दिस इज अ केस रिलेटेड टू द दिलीप सिंह वर्सेस स्टेट ऑफ बिहार 2004. So the implicit logic here is that there is nothing wrong with the man not fulfilling his promise of marriage without parental consent. Similarly, if a woman has sex with a man from another caste based on a promise to marry, she is aware that marriage was never possible because this means there was consent to sex irrespective of the promise of the marriage. And this was said by the court Honorable Supreme Court in the Uday versus State of Karnataka in 2003. The underlying basis or logic यहाँ पे क्या है? Is that the she would have known that the intercaste marriages are not socially acceptable, but the parents won't allow intercaste marriages. Fine, but now let us talk about women who chooses to, So what about those women who actually wish to defy such caste, intercaste issues and other social hierarchies to marry a man? Fine. So promise to marry cases also carry the danger of diluting the gravity of sexual violence and strengthening the rape myths. While most trials in Lucknow during her field work were elopement cases, bhag jana, a considerable number were an outcome of broken promise of marriage. So it was evident that personnel routinely cited, even the defense lawyers and police personnel routinely cited promise to marry cases as prime examples of women misuse law. Clause 69 therefore has little to do with the punishing sexual violence against women. Instead, it aims at regulating socially prohibited sex. If we are truly committed to the sexual autonomy of women, we must resist the victimhood that clause 69 assigned women. Okay, so 69 somewhat is focusing on victimization, you can say, or it aims to regulate the socially prohibited relations or activities. So therefore, somewhat this is again a balanced article, a good one, giving you insight from both the perspective. And of course, the two cases mentioned here are very, very important for us from example. Okay. Further, this text and context page is related to, of course, what Government of India has now done, and that is related to the this restriction on the imports of basmati rice. Earlier, it was the restriction imposed on the exports of white rice, non-basmati rice actually. So Indian government has prohibited the export of white rice and levied a 20% export duty on parboiled rice till October. Okay. 15 and permitted the export of basmati rice for contracts with value of $1,200 a ton or above. तो parboiled rice और white rice जिसको बोलते हैं उस पर 20% की एक्सपोर्ट ड्यूटी इंपोज कर दी थी सरकार ने अक्टूबर 15 को टिल अक्टूबर 15 तक की हुई है. एंड फर्दर क्या हुआ, जस्ट 2-3 डेज बैक बासमती राइस के कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स मींस एक्सपोर्ट कॉन्ट्रैक्ट जो बासमती राइस से रिलेटेड हैं दैट हैज बीन फिक्स्ड फॉर द वैल्यू ऑफ $1,200 पर टन. अगर यहाँ तक है तो अलाउड होंगे, उससे अबव होंगे तो इससे ज़्यादा होंगे तो अलाउड होंगे, अदरवाइज अलाउड नहीं होंगे. So India is the largest rice exporter globally with a 45% share in the world rice market. ये आपको पता होना चाहिए. Overall rice exports in April and May of 2023 were 21.1% higher compared with the same period last financial year. Okay, so we are the largest exporter of rice. For domestic consumers, though there is slight increase in the rice prices, in the long run availability is secured and prices are not expected to skyrocket. Okay, because we are the largest, one of the largest producers of the rice as well. So what are the issues? So domestic inflation scenario को देखते हुए सरकार ने ऐसा किया कि domestic ठीक ठाक बनी रहे. So what is the rice production estimate क्या है? So according to third advanced estimate Department of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, during the Rabi season 2020-2023 rice production was 13.8% less. समझ गए? तो इस वजह से कहीं ना कहीं सरकार को ये स्टेप लेना पड़ा कि प्रोडक्शन ही कम रही है. तो देयरफॉर डोमेस्टिक जो रिक्वायरमेंट है उसको मीट करना जरूरी है. तो इसलिए इस पे ठीक है. सो व्हाट कैन इंडियन फार्मर्स एक्सपेक्ट? द गवर्नमेंट हैज इंक्रीज्ड द एमएसपी फॉर राइस एंड द पैडी प्रोक्योर्ड नाउ बाय राइस मिलर्स आर एट अ प्राइस हायर देन द एमएसपी. द प्राइसेस विल नॉट डिक्लाइन फॉर फार्मर्स. ठीक है. सो फार्मर्स को कोई खास नुकसान नहीं होने वाला है. ठीक है. दैट्स इट. दैट इंपॉर्टेंट. Else important here, color one related to the हमने डिस्कस किया था इन ब्रीफ कि व्हाट आर द चेंजेस टू द प्रोसेस फॉर सेल ऑफ सिम कार्ड्स. तो हमने देखा था कि ऑलमोस्ट 52 लाख जो है फ्रॉड सिम्स मिल ब्लॉक कर दिया सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट ने. ऑन अगस्त 14 स्पेशली यूनियन मिनिस्टर ऑफ टेलीकम्युनिकेशन इंट्रोड्यूस द 2 रिफॉर्म्स. फाइन. The 2 reforms क्या हैं ये? These entail a revision of norms for bulk procurement of SIM cards and registering the final point of sale POS by the licensees or providers. तो bulk SIM card की जो procurement है अब वो नहीं होगी, उसकी जगह पे KYC की प्रोविजन की गई है. ठीक है. Know your customers. एंड साथ में ही गवर्नमेंट ने it would be now mandatory for the franchises Also sellers, agents, distributor of SIM cards to be registered with the licenses or telecom network operators. Police verification is mandatory. Okay. So the minister said that 20% of the bulk procured SIMs were misused. In the guise of bulk connection, a lot of SIMs would be procured and then they would make automated calls using box. So now what the government has proposed, the government has proposed or made it mandatory for registration over the Sanchar Sathi portal. What exactly is this? So broadly, citizen-centric portal allows citizens to check the connections. What exactly is the Sanchar Sathi portal? To check the connection registered against their names, block mobile phones which are stolen or rust, report fraudulent or unrequired connections, verify the genuineness of a device using the IMEI number, that is International Mobile Equipment Identifier number. Okay. So what is the reform on POS? From now on, it will be mandatory for the franchise agents. We have discussed all together this. And apart from that, what about bulk SIM cards? So ये समझ लेना जरूरी है. Broadly, the latest provision would replace the system of bulk procurement of SIM cards by businesses, corporates, or those meant for specific events. So generally, business और the companies क्या होती हैं bulk procurement करती हैं cards की. इसलिए आप देखते हो कि most of numbers जो आप देखते हो वो हार्डली 1 से 2 डिजिट का ही डिफरेंस देखने को मिलता है. मोस्ट ऑफ द डिजिट्स आपके 10 में से 6 से 8 डिजिट्स आपके सिमिलर दिखते हैं. क्यों दिखते हैं? क्योंकि बल्क प्रोक्योरमेंट करती हैं. ठीक है, फॉर यूजेस बिजनेस कॉर्पोरेट्स एंड ऑल. With a system of entailing business connections, sizable procurement by a registered business entity or enterprise, elaborating on the promise. So this is what 20% of बात है की गई थी. So now this bulk procurement is going to be replaced with KYC norms. ठीक है, know your customer, mandatory इसको verify किया जाएगा and then it will be they will be issued the license this SIM cards. In order to prevent the misuse of printed Aadhaar, the provisions mandate that demographic details would be required by scanning the QR code of the printed Aadhaar. Okay, and subscribers would also have to undergo the entire KYC procedure for replacing their SIM for a period of 24 hours. All outgoing and incoming SMS facilities would be barred. Okay, so these are the reform measures been undertaken in order to prevent the existence of fraudulent SIM cards. Okay. That's important. ओके, सो रेलवे इंसिडेंट जो बालासोर में हुआ था उसके बाद रेलवे टू एक्सपीडाइट इंस्टॉलेशन पैसेंजर थिंग. वायलेंस कंटिन्यूज इन मणिपुर, 7 more persons injured. So somewhat दिख नहीं रहा कुछ खास सोल्यूशन यहाँ पे होते हुए. सीजीआई ने फिर हियरिंग जो चल रही है आर्टिकल 370 उसके रिलेटेड पूछा है कि इफ प्रेसिडेंट कुड ओवरराइड रिकमेंडेशंस ऑन आर्टिकल 370 एब्रोगेशन ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली ऑफ जम्मू एंड कश्मीर, जो वहाँ की लेजिस्लेटिव असेंबली थी, क्या उसके रिकमेंडेशंस को जो प्रेसिडेंशियल ऑर्डर थी वो क्या है ओवरराइड कर सकती है कि नहीं, सरकार से पूछा है. इंडियंस मोर लाइकली टू बिलीव नेशंस इन्फ्लुएंस इज ग्रोइंग, said by the Pew Research. You can see the graph figure. Pew Research जो है उसके अकॉर्डिंग share of people who say India's influence in the world is in the recent years is getting stronger, 68%. If so, the world highest amongst the, you can see nowhere आसपास भी नहीं खड़े. ठीक है. So according to Pew Research Center Survey 2020, close to 70% of Indians believe that India's influence is on the rise, compared with the average of 28% across 19 countries who agree with the same. So average कितनी है 28%, but we have 70%, 8%, more than double. Smooth operation of LM critical to Aditya L1 success. Now what exactly is the LM? तो LM जो है वो चंद्रयान मिशन 3 जो रिसेंट अभी हमने लॉन्च किया उसमें भी यूज हुआ था. तो LM है क्या? आदित्य L1 के बारे में हम ऑलरेडी कल डिस्कस कर चुके हैं, तो रिपीट करने की जरूरत नहीं है सच. तो LM है क्या? इट्स अ शॉर्ट फॉर लिक्विड अपोजी मोटर. Okay, apogee and perigee, distance from the earth, shortest and longest distance. So it's a vital for the ISRO plans to place the Aditya spacecraft in hollow orbit at Lagrangian point L1 देखा था, total L5 होते हैं. So this has been developed by, of course, the Liquid Propulsion System Center, the ISRO Center for Liquid and Cryogenic Propulsion in Thiruvananthapuram. LM has played an important role in missions including the 2014 MOM, that is Mars Orbiter Mission, Mangalyaan, and even the more recent Chandrayaan 3. तो सिंपल टर्म्स में अगर बात करें तो LM है क्या? तो LM engines are used for orbital adjustment maneuvers of satellites and spacecraft in orbit. So what does it mean? कि LM जो है basically is a propulsion system which is used for orbit related adjustment, ठीक है, of the spacecraft. Fine. तो इवन न्यूटन थ्रस्टर्स भी यूज किए जाएंगे इसमें, नॉट जस्ट LM. So ISRO is planning to launch the mission using a Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle PSLV-XL. ठीक है. Once the Aditya spacecraft exits the Earth's sphere of influence and heads towards its destination, the Lagrangian point L1, which is 1.5 million kilometers away from the Earth, the LM will shut down for the best part of the 4-month journey. तो LM है क्या कि जब ये अर्थ के ऑर्बिट से बाहर निकलेगा, ठीक है, एंड विल बी मूविंग मार्चिंग टुवर्ड्स इस डेस्टिनेशन दैट इज सन, तो उस टाइम पीरियड्स के लिए ऑलमोस्ट 4 मंथ जर्नी के लिए LM जो है शट डाउन हो जाएगा. द मोस्ट क्रिटिकल चैलेंज फॉर द ISRO साइंटिस्ट वुड बी टू रीअवेकन दिस ऑलरेडी शट LM propulsion सिस्टम, ठीक है, जो कि जिस अभी चंद्रयान 3 के टाइम पे भी यही क्रिटिकल चैलेंज, वन ऑफ द क्रिटिकल चैलेंज बिफोर दिस. So during the Mangalyaan mission as well, this critical maneuver waking the LM engine after an extended hibernation had given ISRO scientists fighting moment. So देख सकते हो, it's not that easy. ठीक है. So propulsion system of the spacecraft comprises the 440 Newton LM engine plus 822 Newton thrusters and 410 Newton thrusters will be intermittently fired, actually propelling the. So the thruster will be used to correct the orientation of the spacecraft as it traverses the vast empty. Thrusters की application क्या होगी? Correct the orientation. And LM की application क्या होगी? To help in what? Orbital adjustment. That's two things. I mean, important point. Lagrangian point को हम equilibrium point भी बोल देते हैं in the Sun and Earth system. Remember, that is about 1.5 kilometers away from the Earth between it and the Sun. One of the 5 Lagrangian points. Okay, so that's the important miscellaneous things. G20 must help deal with the glaring inequities revealed by the pandemic, says by the WHO envoy. Of course, this should be. And Green Code, that is NGT, National Green Tribunal, directed the BRO, Border Road Organization, to plant 10,000 trees in Uttarakhand in a month. Okay, क्यों? Because ये compensatory ground पे कहा है plant करने के लिए, because as a part of compensatory tree plantation to make up for hundreds of trees felled during construction of road from Simli to Waldam. ठीक है, तो इसलिए BRO को compensatory ground पे इतने trees लगाने को कहे, वो भी एक month. Now the world news. Rebel soldiers in Gabon claim to have ousted their president. So Gabon में भी after Niger and all we have seen. So Gabon में भी कहीं ना कहीं तख्ता पलट like situation. Democratic elected government है, उसको आगे military rule को मिल. Apart from this, ये जिस पे डेल एंड HP की जो imports थे उस पे कहीं ना कहीं गवर्नमेंट ने थोड़ा foreign, not just Dell and HP but foreign based this assembling and imports of laptops and all. So Dell and HP and 30 other firms show interest in IT hardware प्रोडक्शन लिंक इंसेंटिव स्कीम, जिसको कि हम ऑलरेडी डिस्कस कर चुके हैं. ठीक है, तो साइन ऑन बोनस अंडर PLI फॉर IT हार्डवेयर, सेंट्रल विल प्रोवाइड 5% इंसेंटिव टू ब्रांड ऑन फ्रेश लोकल प्रोडक्शन. Applicants include firms working with large brands for assembly. Local assembly is a starting point, says Minister. And this will be followed by other components ecosystem setting up shop in India. So this is in order to drive our Make in India initiative, plus provide incentive to the companies or attract companies through the PLI incentives. And this will be a good thing for ultimately the customers as well, because you could find some things getting cheap because now they are producing or assembling them in India itself. ओके आरबीआई के जो गवर्नर हैं उन्होंने फ्लैग किया कंसर्न्स ओवर फ्यू अर्बन कोऑपरेटिव बैंक्स यूसीबीज related their governance and all. Course now finally. Fine. So that's it from the today's Hindu analysis itself. But let us have a look at the today's questions based on today's analysis itself. Here, see questions that you need to solve as your homework. That is a report titled "Illegal Trade of Rats and Boa in India 2016-21" has been published by the WCS, that is World Wildlife Conservation Society of India. And second, the rats and boa is classified as threatened by the International Union for Conservation of Nature. The second question, the subjective one, is for 10 marker. You need to write the same words. And the question is, the time has come for India to have regulation for AI, artificial intelligence, in a manner that is consistent with the Indian ethos, by and for Indians. Okay, so that's it from my side. If you have any query, anything, you can put the same in the comment section. Until then, take care, keep revising, and do not forget to solve this question. Thank you. Stay tuned for tomorrow's